Well, hello there, motherfuckers, and I'm here with the review of We Are Not Your Kind by Slipknot, just released today. I was listening to one album going to work today, and I immediately switched onto this one. I totally forgot that this album was coming out. And I was like, okay, it's time to listen to a new Slipknot album, because we've been waiting nearly 5 years for this. And I saw this throughout social media. A lot of my friends on there saying the same thing. It's been 5 years. It's been 5 years, and it's true. Last time we were saying that it was about 6 years. 2008, For All Hope Is Gone, all the way to 2014. When we had the Gray chapter being released. So this album, I gotta be honest with you, the first listen that I had this morning, I kind of had mixed feelings. I liked it, and then there was like certain songs that really didn't sit well with me, and I was having a lot of mixed feelings. I'm like, I like a lot of these songs, especially the songs that were released as singles, such as Solway Firth and Unsainted. Now, those songs are good. Now, All Out Life is not on here. That's a bonus track on the Japanese edition for some reason. I don't know why they chose to do that. It's a little bit strange. Like, that song seemed to be getting a lot of acclaim, but sometimes bands do that. They do a song as a comeback, and then they just decide to like pass on that song and just leave it off entirely. The reason why I think at first I didn't enjoy the album as much as I did the second time I listened to it, that's when I really did, and I told myself that. Because I still remember so many other albums, and like I said, one comes to mind, and that being Humans by Gorillaz. A different genre of music, but a relevant example all the same, where my first listen was a very negative, very disappointing experience. And then upon repeated listens, I started to love the album. And, that one took a little bit more, warming up to than this did. This only took like one more listen. But I started liking a lot of songs. And really, like, the first song that really jumped out at me was Nero Forte. The way how vocalist Corey Taylor sings on that song, I think that's probably the highest I've ever heard him as far as like register, like in tone of voice, like really just getting up there. And that's like something you only see out of Stone Sour, which I'm really not a fan of. And I remember I said that way back on my Chapter 5 review. I said that like I don't really like the idea of like Stone Sour making its way into Slipknot, but as long as they kind of find that delicate balance between the two, and I think that's what we got on this album, because I can't say that it's Stone Sour. Every time I listen to Stone Sour, it's not like it's a bad band, a band that I dislike. It's just I listen to Corey Taylor as the vocalist in Stone Sour, and like many other side projects, I just can't help but feel that I'd rather be listening to Slipknot. So the track list on here, I decided, let's go through it from the top, and I'll give my opinions basically on each song. And so, like, a lot of these songs, my opinion improved on during the second listening. And like I said, I understand why it took so long. This is a drastically different album, and we're going to talk about that as we go through the tracks here. So we start off with Insert Coin. This, I gotta say, really, I mean, maybe I have to listen to it a little bit more, but this is probably the weakest intro I've ever heard. after that, the great intro on the grade chapter, I have to say, like, 19 was a way better like intro than this. This is not really what I would consider to be a good intro. 19 was actually like a song that I remember when I got to see Slipknot live with Lamb of God back in 2015. They played that song as the intro. And also the year before when I saw them in 2014 in Jersey. And I was like, okay, so this is, I was really liking 19. And I didn't even realize what a great intro that was until I heard it live. And I was like, this works really nicely for the band. And I think they even recognize it. But for some reason, I don't think Insert Coin is going to end up being one of those concert intros. It just doesn't really sound like something to really get the crowd warmed up. Like all these Slipknot intros, like especially you think of Iowa, which is like just total screaming and yelling. What was it, 515 if I'm not mistaken? And then you have the self-titled album, just great intros on those albums. I mean, you can't go wrong with this. But Insert Coin, just no. Unsainted, this was a very good first single to release for the album. So, because, All Out Life is a bonus track, so you really can't count that. This really reminded me of Devil and I. And I think that was done on purpose, because Devil and I, that wasn't the first single, but off of the grade chapter. But they kind of made a similar song here with a catchy chorus and a nice riff. It's really a good song, and it's also good that this is the first song on the album. They kicked it off with that, and they didn't do that last time. But this is with Sarcastrophe. Sarcastrophe. I always can never say the name of that. That was the intro track. Not the intro, but the intro track on the grade chapter. And I have to say that Unsainted is not as forceful as that track, but it still works the same. And you kind of think back, all of the intro songs on Slipknot albums have been very harsh. This one's a little bit lighter though. Birth of the Cruel. I gotta say, I really like this song. This is where you really see Corey Taylor start vocalizing. It's a lighter song. I didn't really like it that much at first. It was a much different sound than I was used to hearing from Corey Taylor and Slipknot, and that's probably why. And it really it sounds good. It's something that I really like. That I think there's some good singing here. There's some good vocals. It's a good track. And definitely one of those tracks that I liked a lot better the second time around. Death Because of Death. And this is something that I'm going to talk about here on this album. They really had no business doing these interludes. Because, first of all, Slipknot has never done interludes. I want to say that that's right. I don't remember having any interludes. You could think of was it Frail Nursery? I believe on the first album, but that is a lead-in to Purity. So, that's something, but that was a lead-in track. Death Because of Death is not really a good lead-in track. It's something that they kind of wanted to be spooky and ominous, but I don't know, guys. I think it's a little bit of a fail. I don't think it was that good. First of all, and we're going to talk about just these interludes. It's just a little bit lazy, I feel. I feel like it cuts down the content where they could have just inserted another song. And a friend was telling me on Instagram that they have 9 more songs that might be released that they had recorded and they cut from this album. So why they went with an interlude like this is beyond me. Nero Forte. I'm going to say that this is my favorite track on the album. Probably an unpopular opinion. because many people are saying it's Red Flag, and we'll get to Red Flag in a moment, but I have to say Nero Forte, much like Birth of the Cruel, it goes even further, with Corey Taylor really vocalizing, getting into the higher register, and this is the highest that I think I've heard him sing on a Slipknot song. I could be wrong, but if memory serves, that this is just a nice song. It's a nice melody. It's, I really liked it. It was something that I feel, and I know I said that this a lot on the Gray Chapter review, but it was something that I would expect to be on Volume 3, the Subliminal Verses, which is my favorite Slipknot album. Again, another unpopular opinion. I know most people say it's Iowa, but I have to say Nero Forte, Brother Nero. I know you're going to think that, when you hear the title of that song, but, yeah, Nero Forte, there's just something about that song. I noticed that before I replayed the album again today at the gym, which was during my second listen, I listened to Nero Forte right after finishing this album. That's how much I liked it. I picked that track to go back to it. Critical Darling. This is another song that I really was not really too enthused about when I first heard it, but that synth. I think it's a really cool sounding synth, and it really adds a lot to the song. So I like this song. I think it's good. It's got a nice bit of electronic and heavy, and I enjoyed this one. It's a good track, and it's nice that it comes right after Nero Forte. So you get two good songs in a row. But then they kind of hit a brick wall here with A Liar's Funeral, and this song, it sucks. I don't like A Liar's Funeral. It's very boring. It's very repetitive. Corey Taylor is like, this is supposed to be obviously like an emotional song. He's screaming liar, liar, and everything. And I feel like this song is about something or someone, but just did not like it at all. It really just bored me. Red Flag. This is a good Slipknot song. It definitely sounds very Iowa-ish. That's another term that I still remember from 5 years ago that I use when describing certain songs on the Gray Chapter. Red Flag is good, but it is definitely not my favorite. It's like not even close. But a lot of people are really enjoying this track. At least a lot of my friends are. And when I posted on Instagram that I was listening to this album today, a lot of people said, Red Flag is awesome. And one of my friends, I'm not sure if people know him, he's on YouTube, Chris Crawls, who I've known for years. He does his own hip-hop music and stuff. He told me that Red Flag is his favorite. He is a gigantic Slipknot fan. And I gotta tell you, he really liked Red Flag as well. I don't know. I'm not. It's a decent song, but I'm not really feeling it. Like it feels kind of like it would have been a bonus track on Iowa. But I shouldn't say that because I like a lot of bonus tracks on a lot of albums, so that's not really fair to say. It just sounds like it would be like a cut song. Really makes me want to hear these cut songs and see like if any of them are better. What's next? Another waste of look, Slipknot, you're not good with interludes. They're not good. This is okay. I don't know what happened. You're usually amazing with intros. Like I said, all your intros off of all your albums up to this point have been really good intro tracks. But for some reason, on here, Insert Coin just is not living up to those standards. And what's next is another bad interlude. Even worse than Death Because of Death, because, at least, I don't know, but at least I feel like Death Because of Death is like, at least there's something to it. What's next is just like, I don't know, it's an excuse to waste like 48 seconds with just nonsense. Spiders. This is probably, to me, the most surprising track on the album. And this was a song that, like, I really was, I didn't know, like, what to think when I first heard this. So, like, during my second listen through, I was looking forward to rehearing this, because you want to know something? I actually forgot how Spiders sounded. I was like, well, how is this? You never, like, do that? You can listen to a whole song, Spiders, which is 4 minutes long, so it's it's one of the shorter tracks, believe it or not, on the album. But it actually really was not memorable to me for the first listen. So I was like, this song must have not been too good. I listened to it and I liked it a lot. It's really melodic. There's no screaming at all from Corey Taylor on this. If memory serves, maybe there's little parts, but it's mostly like a melody. It's very like heavy on the chorus, and it's a catchy chorus, and that is something like, okay, Slipknot is no stranger to catchy choruses. I mean, they've been doing that, since Wait and Bleed. They know how to write a catchy chorus. That's nothing new. They put more emphasis on choruses during the, I think they've always done it, but I guess you could say, when they started to get a bit more, this is going to be a controversial term, poppy, but bear with me for a minute. What I mean by that is just more melodic, just a little bit more organized sound. And, there's just a little bit like, now kind of like, there's a bit of a groove to it. I guess maybe that's a better term to use. So Spiders I like. I think it's probably one of the most surprising tracks on the album. Orphan, a song that I did like during the first listen through. It's a good song. It definitely has Iowa qualities to it, but definitely I don't really understand like the big love for Red Flag, because you look at Orphan, and Orphan is a great track. I think it trumps it. So Orphan, a pretty long track, almost clocking in at 7 minutes, and there's Slipknot's always been varied with the track length, so I can't really say anything about that, but Orphan's definitely worth a listen. My Pain, and very aptly named My Pain, I must say, because My Pain, listening to this track, this is an interlude that goes on for 6 minutes and 35 seconds according to Wikipedia. And I'll say that is probably accurate, that running time. What were they thinking? This is just a bunch of industrial noise. And coming from a Fear Factory fan, I have to tell you, I have to say that track right there, oh my god, it's crap. It's not good at all. When I saw like My Pain, I was expecting to hear like a really like emotional song, or either a heavy song with Corey Taylor, because we're getting close to the end of the album. No, it's time for another interlude. But unlike the last interlude, which I'm checking, I said 48 seconds. Actually, What's Next was 53 seconds. They go with 6 minutes and with 6 minutes. Wait, how long is it? 6 minutes and 48 seconds. That is way too long, and for a track that has nothing to offer on it. And I'm saying, like, I like tracks. Give me Fear Factory Archetype, for example. That is like a 9-minute track, Ascension, and I love it. And all it is just like ambient noise, and it's incredible, because it has a mood to it. This, My Pain. Listening to it, it's not good. And once again, I have to say, Slipknot. I guess when your fifth album, when we wait another 5 years for your next album to come out, perhaps you could just go easy on the interludes, because unless you know how to improve them, like I'm also thinking about interludes on Korn Issues. Those were some great interludes. Like, those are some fantastic interludes. Go back and listen to them. They're so well done. There's so many great transitions, and that lead into songs. And I don't know. Also, See You on the Other Side. Korn is very good at transitions. If any band should be doing transitions, on Korn's last album, they didn't do They haven't done transitions for a while. Like using those transitional tracks, those interludes. So they should get back to doing that because they're very good at it. Slipknot is not. Not Long for This World. I did not know what to think when I first heard this song, but upon my my second listen to it, I loved it. This is a slow song. This is a song that makes up for A Liar's Funeral as like a good slow song that is not boring, that feels like it's got energy to it while it's still slow, and it's, at a much slower tempo than the rest of the tracks. It feels right. It feels Slipknot, and it feels good. And strangely enough, you've this actually reminds me of the closing track on the last Slipknot album. What was that one called? Let me just look that up really quickly, because I can't really seem to remember the name. It is If Rain Is What You Want. I have to say, like, Not Long for This World, very similar, but I gotta say, I actually think that this song is better. So Way Firth. It's kind of weird because you think back on Slipknot albums and how they usually like tend to end an album. Like, let's just go through a few here. I've got Spotify open so we could kind of see, like, how does Slipknot usually end albums? Like, ever since the first album, Scissors, a slow song, Iowa, with Iowa, which is a huge track that's just like a screaming and yelling and a very like long droning song. Volume 3, they did Danger Keep Away, which is an acoustic song. All Hope Is Gone, they went out with a pretty heavy track. So that that was a bit different. But like when you kind of think about it, they've only went all out heavy like one time, because on their last album, The Grade Chapter, they went out slow, and so I guess you could say this is a return to the All Hope Is Gone style of going out like on a I don't want to say a high note, because If Rain Is What You Want was a high note. It was by no means a low note. It was definitely a high one. This song, it goes out. But it's strange. It's like you don't really see albums like ending with like a single, so that was strange, that they chose to like cap off the album with this. And it is a little bit weird that it ends this way, because I gotta tell you something, like, I don't know, I guess people have varying opinions about this, but you could say, like, if you have like a slow, like, droning song, then maybe like it will bore people and they'll just skip the last track. I could definitely see people doing that. Maybe they want people to just like rock out right to the end. But I like, I kind of like a slow start and a slow end, so they're like nice bookends on the album. That way it like plays it out. You kind of get to like contemplate what you just heard on that album, even if it's your 20th time listening to it. You still get to think about it a little bit. So, there you go, really. I think it's a very good album, actually. I think I prefer The Grade Chapter more, though. See, that's the thing. The Grade Chapter really pulled me in the first time I heard it. I'm not like too crazy about like having to listen to another album again. But see, sometimes our minds are not ready to hear certain sounds, and this is a much different album. And like I said, I am in full support of when bands try to do something different. I'm probably one of the few people on the planet that enjoys Saint Anger by Metallica. I really like Reload, for example. You know, so there's albums that I really enjoy that a lot of people dislike. And, you know, I guess that's just me. Like, I like different things. So I'm willing to, like, experience and accept, like, different interpretation of one's music. And I feel like as artists, it's important for them to explore. I know we always want them to have that key sound. And, you know, when Corey, you know, gets that, you know, that growl going, you know, you hear Slipknot. You hear it in the majority of the tracks. But once in a while, you know, you'll hear something a little bit different. You know, Birth of the Cruel, you know, Nero Forte. You hear some different sides of Corey. And, you know, Spiders is definitely like one of those songs where you definitely hear a much different side of the band. And I like that because, like, we'll always have this album. This is the... I don't know if they're going to, like, do this next time. The response seems pretty positive. Most people seem like they're enjoying it. And I am too. You know, it's definitely like, I'm actually looking at a lot of, like, the reviews, and they're, like, very positive. They're, like, in the 90s, 4 stars, 5 stars. The only one that, it's not a bad review by any means, but Metal Injection giving it a 7.5 out of 10. I mean, this album, I'd say I give it no, you know what? I'm not doing numbers. I said I'd stop doing that a long time ago. I'm not doing numbers, no. I'm not falling into that trap again where people are going to be like, oh, but why didn't you give it this? You know, so I'm giving it a recommendation, a definite recommendation. Slipknot fans, you've probably already listened to it already. People who are turned off to the band, like, after Iowa, you're definitely not going to like this one. You're probably going to hate it. Because there's been those Iowa fans that, like, they have been, like, hating on Slipknot since Volume 3. I'm not sure if... They probably still listen to Slipknot, but they still wish that they'd go back to the Iowa days. I think that we definitely got way more Iowa-ish sounding songs on the Gray chapter, and that was probably done purposely because it was dedicated to Paul Gray, and they probably wanted to have that nostalgic sound that was fused with the new sound, so there was still enough new experimental stuff. It was kind of like having Iowa and Volume 3 fused together. And, you know, I don't know where I would rank this album. I really don't. It's hard to rank these albums, I have to say. You know, always, like, All Hope Is Gone has always been my least favorite album. Not that it's a bad album, but, like, I just don't enjoy all the tracks on there, especially a lot of the opening ones. I think from Psychosocial on that album, that's when the album really starts to heat up, but it has, like, a very, like, weak beginning. I don't really like a lot of the, like, opening tracks. Like, they're okay, but they just like weren't the best. So yeah, I definitely recommend this album. Go listen to it on Spotify, buy it, you know, if that's what you're gonna do. But yeah, I'm just saying that you might want to, if you don't like it the first time around, definitely try to give it a second listen, because you're gonna hear a lot of different type of material on here that you're not going to be used to hearing, because I'm sorry, like, I don't care what you say, there's a lot of differences here than what we heard on the Gray chapter and on previous Slipknot albums. And that always happens. That happens on every album. That's what's great about the band. I'm not crazy at how long the band makes us wait. You know, it's one thing with Metallica, but, you know, Slipknot, you're not at Metallica's level, and I've talked about it, so I'm not going to go off on a tangent talking about, you know, the gaps between releases of albums again. You know, the numerous hiatuses, it's like ridiculous already with them. You know, but anyway, I'm happy that they put out a new album. I'm happy that I ended up really enjoying it. And guys, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you thought of the album. Do you disagree with me on anything? What do you agree on? Please subscribe, click the bell so you get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. And guys, thank you for watching. I will see you next time.